So I'm sitting outside this property that Paul managed to buy SubTo. So it was in pre-foreclosure. And Paul, just tell me about your experience with pre-foreclosure, because you've done a lot of this. Where did it all start for you?
Well, it starts back in about 1998. I had gotten out of real estate for a little while and ventured into a medical startup tech type company. And we were told that we were going to get funding of about $1 million, $1.5 million for venture capital. And I didn't realize how important the management team was at the time, or how much we would need to give away to make it work for the people with capital coming in. And so basically, I was a guy with a good amount of money. I was a guy with the great credit, and I racked up as much credit debt as I could, trying to keep us going on this thing. And then by the time that we realized that this wasn't going to work out with the venture capital people, we were just already in trouble. And so by that time, financially, ended up getting a knock on my door about a week before Christmas. And it was the sheriff's department serving foreclosure paperwork. So I personally was going through foreclosure at that point in time.
Was that a shock? Were you expecting that? Did you get much notice?
Well, we knew we hadn't paid. So we knew that we were behind on the mortgage. I had never dealt with people much in foreclosure before. I'd been in real estate at that time probably about 8 years, but just doing mostly general real estate. We had done flips and things of that nature. We had a few long-term rentals at that point in time. Prior to that we had sold off, and so it was just something that I kept thinking we'd figure our way out of it, and so kind of devastated my wife at the moment. I had 2 little kids, so anyway, Andrew and Ashley, and so they're probably at that point in time they were about 5 and 6. So it was terrible timing, a week before Christmas, everything else. Fortunately, I knew that you could drag out a foreclosure a little bit. I didn't know much about it, but I knew that we had a little bit of time at least. So at that point, I decided work-wise that I needed to go back into real estate. And because we were facing foreclosure, I needed to learn everything that I could about it. So at that point, we got a pretty big education on dealing with foreclosure.
Were you able to unravel it?
We were able to unravel it. We were able to save it. We couldn't keep the home. We financially didn't have enough money to be able to keep it, and so we ended up selling it. And so basically, bank got paid, and then we moved on. But at that moment in time, I started to specialize in pre-foreclosure because we realized so much about it. So it wasn't a terrible time in history from as far as people being in foreclosure, but at any given point in time, good times or bad, you're always going to find a certain percentage or number of people who are in foreclosure. And so since then, we've gone on to help several hundred families out through the process. Some of them being able to keep the homes, not many. Usually they can't, but some were able to. And then basically did a lot of that kind of work.
So how does it practically work? How do you know if somebody's in pre-foreclosure? Where do you get that information from?
So first of all, we haven't been able to find out when people immediately miss payments unless somebody tells us that. Generally, so in the state of Florida, which is where I know most of it, it generally takes anywhere between 3 months at a minimum for foreclosure to start, and it can take a lot longer. So back when we were in the Great Recession, sometimes they didn't even start a foreclosure for almost 2 years,
Yeah.
But I would say for the most part in normal seasons, foreclosure is going to start anywhere between 3 to 6 months from the time of the first missed payment.
And then how do you find out about it?
So we find out about it from public record. You can buy a list if you'd like. If you want to buy a list, there are list providers for it. But we also, so we can go right to the county clerk's website and generally get a list directly from there if we wanted to. With this day and age with AI, you could probably find out about it. You could probably set up something as far as a memorized type of a deal that would report back to you and dump the information right into your CRM potentially.
Yeah. And then so for example with this house, they were trying to sell it, so you engaged with the agent. Is that how it started?
Right. So this house had been on the market for in excess of 2 months, but a little bit less than 3 months. However, I had already pulled up the sale date, and I found out that the sale date was literally, what's today's date? Literally yesterday was the sale date on the house. So we had about, from the time that I found it, it was probably about 2 months away from the sale date. It took us a little while to get connected with the realtor and getting him to set up to get us with the sellers. So that probably took another 2-3 weeks. So about 5 weeks prior to it, we contracted on the house.
And so why not just let it go to auction and take your chance at auction? What's the benefit of doing it the way you did it?
So in this case, they had a great interest rate. So we wanted to buy it creatively and buy it as a SubTo type deal, subject to the mortgage. The interest rate was 3.625, which obviously you can't get today. And so rates being more in the sevens at best, for an investor, they could be even up. For an investor, they could be up to even a point higher, so between 7 and 8 somewhere. And so basically, it saved a lot. It also saves a ton of closing costs. So
you save this closing cost. You bought it for 3%. Do you keep any equity they have in it, and what happens to their arrears?
So because this house was just such a mess, I mean, it's pretty much, it's just a mess inside. We didn't offer to give them anything. We offered to, but what this will do for them is it will completely fix their credit in a matter of time.
Right.
And so basically, creditors mainly look at your last 12 months worth of credit. And so once you get beyond that 12-month situation, their credit is going to turn out probably pretty good, depending on what other kinds of credit issues that they may or may not have. But we've had ones in the past that within 2 years have turned around and been able to buy another house.
And what about their arrears?
So their arrears, we had to catch up. This is not an ideal situation as far as arrears. Generally, you want to get into a place with an entry fee. It would be nice to get into them for 10 or 12% or less. This one is a lot higher as far as entry fee. So by the time that there were the arrears, the closing costs, everything else, it probably at about a 50%. Also with that also includes the repairs that are going to have to go into it. So they probably, by the time that we caught up the arrears, which was about $55,000, the principal remaining was about $128,600, and so we're all into it probably at this moment for about $207,100.
And what do you think its ARV is?
ARV, from what I looked up very quickly, I didn't spend a lot of time with it, is somewhere between 330 to 360.
Brilliant.
So
I love that. So even though it's actually costing hard cash, at least from an ARV perspective, it's in a good place. Yeah. I mean, what I think about things like this is towns are full of problematic housing. Whether it's huge repair backlog, huge, termite problems. I've tried to buy a few houses in Palatka and I had to pull out because of big underinvestment in repairs. And then you have nobody's paying their local tax. I bet they're behind on their tax payments, which I know everybody hates paying tax, but from a town perspective, I kind of like a bit of money going to the town because I want to see it revitalized. So when you can come in with these kind of solutions, it gets them out of trouble, it gets you into the property, and it means that I can look at occupying it. And because of the entry costs on this, we need higher levels of occupancy. So we're looking at 2 occupants per room and working with people in transitional housing. So hopefully it will again come full circle where we'll be able to house people
Which
decently.
would provide plenty of cash flow to be able to do the needed things that are with
Yeah.
it. But then you still get the benefit of your loan to value is not terrible
Yes.
as far as for what you're into it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Great. So I'm really grateful for Paul's expertise because, and that's what's amazing about SubTo and Owners Club. It's, you don't have to be expert at everything. You just have to have a trusted expert friend in your
Lean on each other for those needed
exactly
things.
Exactly. So that's great. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you. I sure appreciate it.